Hello, for those of you uh, viewing this channel today. I hope that you're doing well. This video is the third video on this part. If you haven't seen or read along with the others, the first one is more of an informational about the different stories of Cinderella there are. The second part to this is the actual Yeh Shen story from the Cinderella from China. This one is an actual Cinderella classic that I'm going to read, and I hope that you enjoy this one. Cinderella has to get used to a new mother and two new sisters. Her new family members are not very nice to her. Read to find out what happens when Cinderella makes a special wish. As you read on this page, read the start of the story that shows it is a fairy tale. What makes this a fairy tale? Once upon a time, there lived a girl named Cinderella. Cinderella was smart, kind, and beautiful. Her father loved her very much, and she loved him. Cinderella had a stepmother and two stepsisters too. They did not love Cinderella. They were jealous of her and were never kind. Cinderella had to do all of the chores. She mopped the floors and washed all of the dirty dishes. She dusted, scrubbed, and polished every single thing in the house. One day, Cinderella's family received an invitation to a ball. The prince was having a dance and inviting all of the young women in the kingdom. Underline the details that show that Cinderella had to do hard work. On these last two pages, what details let you know that Cinderella's stepmother and stepsisters do not love her? Write them on a piece of paper. Cinderella ironed her stepsisters' dresses. She brushed their hair, and fixed their bows. Then she waved goodbye as they skipped off to the ball. Cinderella was not allowed to go. After everyone left the house, Cinderella sat alone by the fireplace and cried. Tears streamed down her beautiful face. Oh, how I wish that I could go to the ball, Cinderella sobbed. I wish that I had a beautiful dress to wear. Just then, a tiny woman with wings flew through the window. She had a wand in her hand. It was Cinderella's fairy godmother. In the picture, circle the fairy godmother's wand. What is a wand? It's something that you hold in your hand. And as you can see in my little picture here, you whisk it around and say, poof. Underline the two things that Cinderella wishes for on this page and write those two things that she wishes for. Because as you read, you need to think about what you're reading, put on your thinking cap always so you can learn everything about the book. Why are you crying, my dear? The fairy godmother asked Cinderella. I want to go to the ball too, cried Cinderella. Then you shall go, said the fairy godmother. Cinderella's fairy godmother waved her wand quickly in the air. Poof! A pumpkin transformed into a golden coach. 6 mice turned into a team of horses to pull the coach. Whoosh! Cinderella's old, worn-out clothes were changed into a beautiful pink and silver gown and 2 glass slippers. Underline the three things that could happen only in a fairy tale. 3 things that can only happen in a fairy tale. And of course, in your imagination, because a lot of things can happen in our imaginations. Write about this. In the last 3 pages, how does Cinderella's fairy godmother make Cinderella's wishes come true? How? What are you waiting for? The fairy godmother asked Cinderella. You need to get to the ball. Just make sure that you come home by midnight. The prince saw Cinderella as soon as she entered the ballroom. He could not believe his eyes. She was the most beautiful girl he ever seen in the picture, in this illustration. Circle the coach that takes Cinderella to the ball. Which part of this is the coach? Is it the horses or that wagon looking thing that's behind it? What does Cinderella have to remember to do by midnight? Think about it and answer it to yourself. Look for it in the text. What does she have to do? The prince asked Cinderella to dance. The prince soon discovered that Cinderella was smart and kind, and he fell completely in love with her. Cinderella learned that the prince was good and noble. Cinderella fell in love with him too. If the prince is noble, what does it mean? If you don't know by looking at the sentence, open up another tab and type in definition of noble, or just simply the word noble, Noble, and I bet you can find it in an online dictionary. Underline the 4 words that describe Cinderella and the prince. 4 words. Again, let's read this one. The prince asked Cinderella to dance. The prince soon discovered that Cinderella was smart and kind, and he fell completely in love with her. Cinderella learned that the prince was good and noble. Cinderella fell in love with him too. So underline 4 words that describe Cinderella and the prince. Also, why do Cinderella and the prince fall in love with each other? Why? There's always a reason. That's a big why about everything. Why or how problems are solved that sometimes we just don't understand. We just need to look at the answer. Look for that answer. Soon enough, the clock began to strike midnight in the ballroom. Cinderella gasped and turned to race out of the castle. As she ran out, one of her glass slippers fell off her foot. Cinderella did not stop to get it. In the picture, circle the glass slipper that falls off Cinderella's foot. Look for it. Where did it fall? The text tells you, but the illustration shows you. What clues does Cinderella leave that might help the prince find her? Use the details from the text to write the answer below or on a piece of paper. The prince rushed after Cinderella, but he couldn't catch her. He picked up the glass slipper and sighed. It belonged on the foot of the girl he loved. He vowed to find Cinderella and marry her. He vowed means that he made an oath. He promised. He said, without a doubt, I am going to do this. The prince was true to his word. With a glass slipper in hand, he knocked on every door in the kingdom. He was looking for the girl whose foot would fit into the slipper. He did it this time. He didn't send someone to do it. He did it. On other renditions or other Cinderella stories, they always send someone else. But underline a sentence that tells what the princess vows to do. The prince was true to his word. With a glass slipper in hand, he knocked on every door in the kingdom. He was looking for the girl whose foot would fit into a slipper. Reread this page. What was the prince's plan to find Cinderella? Use details from this story. What was his plan? Every girl wished the slipper would fit, especially Cinderella's stepsisters. The stepsisters tugged and pulled on the slipper. They pushed with all their might, but they could not fit their big feet into the slipper. Cinderella watched her stepsisters as she stood next to the fireplace. At last, she stepped out so the prince could see her. May I try? She asked shyly. The prince knelt down in front of Cinderella and held out the glass slipper. Cinderella placed her foot into the slipper, and it fit her perfectly. Hey, he didn't judge her on this one. Like in Yeh Shen, the prince actually judged Yeh Shen and looked at her and said, what? This woman is all dressed in rags. Why would she be the owner of this beautiful slipper? This prince said, come on down. Underline the sentence that shows that the stepsisters want the glass slipper to fit them. Look for the answer. How does the prince know he has found the girl he fell in love with? How? Write your answer. However, The prince did not see that. He looked into Cinderella's eyes. He knew that she was his true love. The prince took Cinderella back to his castle, and they were married the next day. Then Cinderella, who was always kind, invited her father, her stepmother, and her stepsisters to live with the prince and her in the castle. They all lived happily ever after. Underline a sentence that tells how everyone turns out in the end. What lesson does this story tell? Tell me about this. You know that in other stories of Cinderella, there's one by the Brothers Grimm, which is a pretty nasty one. It's a very strange tale because that one also, in that tale, strange things happen to the stepsisters and they do some pretty awkward things to their feet to make those slippers fit. But again, that's a Cinderella story by the Grimm, but by the Brothers Grimm. And also in that story, uh, the prince and Cinderella vanish the stepsisters and stepmother from their existence, and they're not allowed to step on the in the castle. In this story, Cinderella's kind and loving till the end. There is a happy ending in these, but there aren't happy endings in all fairy tales. Look for some fairy tales that don't have very happy endings for some people, only for the main characters. Thank you for reading along with me. I hope that you enjoyed. Thank you for reading along with me. I do hope that you enjoyed this reading and hope that you take advantage of it by rereading it, going over it again and again and again so you can understand more.